Wow, I don't know what's happening, but I think that we might be live. Good morning, everybody. We are the Investing Bros. If for some reason you guys cannot hear me or Piper, somebody can't hear me, let me know. But I'm going to continue on with the introduction. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad to be back. Thank you, everyone who prayed for me. I don't really know what was wrong. I'm pretty sure it's food related, but I am back in office today, and we got a lot to talk about because despite the fact that I was not here yesterday, Bitcoin continued to do its thing, and we saw the price jump up over $29,000. But potentially, did we see a sneak peek into the future of what the top of Bitcoin looks like in the next bull market with a flash rally over on Binance.us? Make sure you guys don't go anywhere. We got a special guest today. Caleb Franzen is going to be joining the show to break down what we're seeing in Bitcoin, what we're seeing in the stock market, and potentially that question of, is it time to start looking into alts again? Or will they continue to bleed against Bitcoin and that Bitcoin dominance continue to skyrocket? We got that and a whole lot more. Go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if this is your first time here. If you guys love crypto and you guys love news, we're going to get all that into the show today. But first of all, I want to introduce my co-host this morning, starting off with Mr. T. Shroom. How you doing this morning, T. Shroom?
Well, I'm really doing better than I deserve, Tim. Back from training, day 2. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling spry, and I've got a little caffeine in my system, so I'm feeling good. Throw it back over to you for the quote of the day, Tim. I believe you got a good
Oh,
one
true.
for us.
Well, we the office theme went so well. We're gonna keep it going. This one is brought to you guys virtue by Elo Brown. Elo Brown put this over in our Discord this morning. You guys can see on that left side the Discord screen. But this is for me. This is in light of me missing yesterday. Jim asking Dwight, "You okay?" And Dwight responds with one of the greatest lines of Dwight: "I am better than you have ever been or ever will be." I don't know if that's necessarily true for myself, but I did think it was humorous this morning as I'm hopefully I told people in chat I don't feel sick anymore, but I feel like I might have been hit by a truck and I'm recovering. I told Tisha before the show, there was a split second on Monday night that I questioned if my appendix had burst because of how much stomach pain I had. But I think I escaped. I think I'm all right. I think it just was something bad that I ate. That being said, though, let's go introduce our other co-host this morning, Mr. Army Piper. Piper, how you doing this morning?
I'm trying to hold it together over here, Captain. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm doing good, man. But yeah, I'm definitely having some Ecamm live issues today. I think we've got a lot of scenes. I may have to clean up my scenes a little
Yeah.
bit. I may have to do some
Well, I
scene
mean,
cleanup.
how did it go on your end? I saw someone said in chat. Let me see who was it. OBC said Tim got the intro sick. It's contagious. Uh, I'm interested to go back and watch and see how that plays out. How is it playing out on your end? Did everything get really spotty and patchy? Because on my end, like the sound went away, and
Yeah,
I don't know
no,
what
it
happened.
it it froze on the intro also. So, but
Nice.
but sound wise, everything's good. It was literally just
Okay.
a glitch in the matrix. So, yeah,
All right. Sounds
we're
good.
gonna.
Sounds
I'm
good.
gonna try to keep it together and make this show happen. Okay.
All right. Well, we're gonna go through the rest of this stuff this morning, and we're gonna bring on Caleb here in just a couple of minutes. But first, you guys know it, you guys love it. We gotta read the names in chat, and the first one, our winner once again, Mr. Amello Fellow, with the good morning money get bros. Where you at, Elo Brown? So that little rivalry continues. And of course, coming in second place was Mr. Elo Brown himself saying good morning. Here's the thing, Amello Fellow. He might have been a little late because he was giving us the quote of the day. So, I don't know. Elo's still got to give a little. He had a good day today, even though coming in second. Number 3, per usual, this is a very common little common little ranking system here. Amello Fellow first, Elo Brown second, Crypto Pew Pew Cruz coming in second with the Pew Pew. Love seeing it. OBC is also here this morning. Who else do we have? A lot of comments between those three starting off the show. Yair Navarro is here. Mike Play is here. Wow, I have not gotten to read this name in a while. Crypto Ben Franklin is here. Everyone's favorite non-US president. Love seeing you here. Who else do we have this morning? Bedridden is here with that blue wrench. Ninja Glock is here. Crypto JMP is here as well. Who else do we have? This is a name that is not well, and the name also The comment got deleted because I think he came in to shill something, but I still want to read the name because Wide Awake in China ADA, I think. A Wide Awake in China ADA, I think I got that one right. That was just a challenge for me. I had to step up to the challenge, but please don't chill things in chat. Thank you very much. We're going to keep moving on here. Who else do we have? Justin Eubanks is here. Curtis Rorick is here. Let's see. Who else do we have? Gia S is here this morning. Army Piper with the blue wrenches in the chat. Joe Nickel is here. Troy King is here. And let's get like 4 more people, and then we're going to move on. Mike Lowry is here. Philly Skills 1428. Crypto Trades. Average Crypto Joe, and I think that was 4, but I'm going to do one more just for kicks and giggles if I find a new one. Brian D is the last name we're reading this morning. Thank you to everyone who is here in chat. Again, go ahead and smash that like button for us, and if you're new here, subscribe to the channel. I don't know if we're going to get to our subscriber goal of 4,000 by the end of June, but maybe by the end of July, but we need you guys' help. Smash that subscribe button, share with your friends. Let's go ahead really quickly before we bring Caleb on. Let's get some economic news. And instead of doing TA like for me and Piper today, I'm going to bring on Caleb Franzen and get his thoughts on some of the charts. Maybe we'll still pull up some charts if it calls for it. But Piper, why don't you go ahead and take us into our economic outlook for the day?
Awesome. Let's do it. So taking a look here today, guys, big one today is going to be the Fed Chair Powell's testimony. That's going to be taking place 8 a.m. my time. So here in about less than an hour. So there's going to be about 10 o'clock out there on the East Coast for you guys. See what he has to say. Looks like the markets today are a little shaky. Waiting to hear and see what he says today, because that's going to be a live broadcast on the news. So we're going to be watching for that. Of course, he's going to be on again tomorrow. It's a 2-day testimony in front of Congress. So really the rest of the week, nothing major coming in. Next week, again, like I've been telling you guys, June 30th, that's going to be the big day. PCE data coming in, the number one piece of data that the Fed Reserve looks at when they're talking about interest rate hikes. So see what that PCE looks like right now. Just so you guys are tracking, the core PCE on that is looking like year over year that it's going to go from 4.4 to 4.1 on a forecast. So it looks like it could be coming down. So we might see that FOMC data that Tim has been showing you guys, showing that we have a rate hike coming in July that actually might flip a little bit based off of this PCE data. So we're going to be watching that close next week. For this week, all eyes on Jerome Powell. Let's go ahead and jump over to Truflation. Truflation coming in at 2.42%, still well under what the U.S. Federal Reserve is reporting. And then lastly, let's go look at our liquidations, guys. I'm going to bet a lot of short liquidations. Yeah, $73.9 billion in liquidated shorts on Bitcoin. People betting against the market. How do you avoid that? Well, you could have watched Investing Bros yesterday, where we told you Bitcoin was very likely going up, not down. I guess they weren't tuned in here and they paid the price on REKT. So that's what happened there, Tim. I'm going to kick it back over to you, brother.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense watching what happened on Bitcoin's chart. We're going to get to the charts here in just a little bit, though. But before we bring Caleb on, let's continue on with this economic outlook. Going back to my screen over here, Piper, looking at the CME future. So nothing different here. I want to kind of point the attention to the July of 2023. 80% chance, give or take, we're going to get another rate hike. So nothing changing there. It does look like December, they're expecting it to get just kind of end where we might get one more raise and then pause right there. What I thought was interesting, and we have not done on this channel, I went over and I was going through all the dates of 2024, and you know what I found right now? And this is a long way off, but they are predicting here on the CME futures tool that December of 2024, with not a whole lot of confidence, but the highest percentage of a chance that we could end the year off in 2024 is down to 350 to 375. That would be massive. So CME futures at this point predicting that something forces the Fed to go into rate cuts starting the year off in January 2024. Even though Jerome Powell said it could be up to 2 years after they raise another 1 or 2 more interest rates. It could be 2 years before we ever see a rate cut. So going to be interesting to watch what happens over the next 2 years. Something that is a little bit alarming. I'm not going to say it's the end of the world. I'm not going to say that this means that Bitcoin's rally is over, but we jumped 10 points last night up to 59 squarely into the greed on Bitcoin, on the Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index. And this doesn't even fully show what happened, because I believe when this registered 59, I think the price of Bitcoin was probably closer to over here back towards 28,000, even not even pushing towards 29. So I'm interested to see what Bitcoin's price does the rest of today. You can go ahead and go off my screen now, Piper. I'm interested to see what the Bitcoin price does today. I'm interested to see what the Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index does later tonight. Make sure you guys tune in tomorrow to see how that updates. But if we keep swinging into the greed, guys, a lot of times you're using that thing right there, that fear and greed index. You're using it to say, if I see fear, that means I probably want to buy. If I see greed, I might be looking for some take profit. So we'll keep you posted on what's happening over there. That being said, though, guys, it is time to jump in and talk about price action a lot more. And to do that, we have our very, very special guest, one of my favorite people in all of crypto, Mr. Caleb Franzen, joining us from Istanbul, the traveler. How are you doing this morning, Caleb? For you, I think it's what, afternoon?
Yeah, what time is it for me right now? It's 4:12 p.m. But yeah, man, doing well. Obviously, the hair is growing out a little bit, so we're just running with it. But yeah, man, doing well.
Yeah, no, my hair's growing too. I've been wearing a hat. Here we go. I'm gonna do this. I don't know what's gonna happen when I take this hat off, but I think the people deserve it. Oh, it's not that.
There we go. There we go. I think I got some length on you right now, but
I hate it so much. I might go the rest of the show like that just because. Shout out to Frankie Candles, great hats, but we're gonna go no hat the rest of the show in honor of Caleb Franzen.
I would like to know. I would like to know when our show became a hair measuring contest.
Hey, sometimes you got to get into the serious things. So, all right, well, let's jump into this, Caleb. First of all, we're going to go a lot of directions with you today because we want to get your take on a lot of different things. But let's just start off with the simple thing that everyone wants to hear about today. What is happening with Bitcoin price? What are you seeing on the charts? Do you think that we're nearing a top, or is this just the beginning of a fresh rally?
I think neither, to be quite honest. I don't think we're near top. I've been bullish since maybe like 18 or 19,000 when we broke above the short-term holder realized price. And since then, we've just kind of continued to make improvements from a structural, technical standpoint, whether that's, statistical indicators, on-chain data points, simple things like the, exponential moving averages, so on and so forth. And so when we were at 30 to 31,000, I was telling people on podcasts I was doing, on my newsletter, on Twitter, I would love for a chance to get back into the 25 to 26,000 range because that lines up perfectly with a retest of the 200-week moving average cloud. So I combined both the exponential and simple moving average. But in that case, looking at the 200-week moving average cloud. And sure enough, we came right into that zone. I was posting about it this weekend that I was buying once again because we were right in that moving average cloud. And, there was a lot of confluence in that zone, right? Not only were we retesting the 200-week moving average, we were also retesting the 200-day moving average. And so for me, we just had a tremendous amount of confluence there in addition to structural support that gave me some degree of confidence that would be a good time to be buying as a long-term investor.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Well, is there anything you want to show? I know that the internet's still being a little glitchy here. Is there anything you want to show on the charts? What are you expecting? I mean, I think that's a good take. So you're kind of saying this is a continuation of the rally we've had since 19,000. Where do you see if you don't think we're close to a top, where do you see that top being? I know in the past here, and I've kind of changed my opinion on this. I used to say I thought we were going to kind of copy exactly what happened back in 2019, run up to the golden pocket of the bear market, which would be a $50,000 Bitcoin. I've since kind of stepped back off that. I think a much more realistic take, and let's share my screen real quick here, Piper. Then I want to go back to Caleb. I was looking even this morning, Caleb, at the Bitcoin CME futures. And there's two gaps that I think are going to be interesting to watch. Oh, I had pulled up my SMA when you were talking about it. Let me pull that down for a second. There's two gaps that I think are going to be interesting to watch. Yeah, we have one way up here, up at 52 as well, 53, I think. But there were two more closer gaps we have. This one we've had listed for a while here on our channel, about, between 34 all the way up to about 35.8. Let's just go ahead and call it 36,000. I think that's a decent level to keep an eye on. But I was zooming in this morning. I was taking a look here, and technically speaking, we created a gap back here in April of 2022 up here at the price of about 41,200. A lot of people have said the number 42,000. Of course, a lot of times you don't just touch the very tip of gaps. You usually run through them a little bit through. It would make sense for a run up to about 42,000, closing both of these gaps. But let's go back to our shared screen here, Piper. Caleb, what are your thoughts about that with those gaps on CME futures? Where do you see the peak on Bitcoin coming in before we potentially move into a boring phase before the real bull market starts?
I mean, man, it's been pretty boring for the last 3 months, So I feel like, we've gone through that kind of stagnation consolidation phase, potentially within a broader uptrend. I think before, like I could look at some of those levels, and that was great analysis with those gaps there on the CME side of things. Before I can really entertain those significantly, I'm going to need to see new year-to-date highs, right? And so that rejection that we had perfectly at 31,000 aligned with structural resistance. And so it was resistance even before we retested it earlier this year in March, or if it was in April. And so, I would not be surprised if it acts temporarily as resistance again. I don't think we'll see a rejection from 31,000 back down to 25. It's possible. But I think when I've kind of done my analysis, there's certain levels that you can kind of keep an eye on between that $35,000 to maybe $43,000 range. Again, though, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because I think that I'm structurally bullish here, but I think most of the indicators that I've been relying on are like the shortest term indicator that I'm using is the 200-day moving average, right? And so like that's not really going to tell us exactly where we're going over the next 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and anything can happen over that time period. So I'm staying super flexible, but I think given the statistical accomplishments that we've already achieved and kind of checked off my list, I have to be bullish here. And, I've become increasingly bullish as the year's gone on.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think there's a lot of unknown here, but I want to kind of transition us, and we'll stay on Bitcoin just for a little bit, but we're going to make it into some altcoin discussion too. And Caleb, anytime you want to share charts, just let me know. Just say, hey, let's pull up my chart.
Okay.
But Bitcoin dominance is another big one, and I will say,
Yep.
I a lot of people have been going after or looking at Ben Cohen, and talking about because he's been just adamant about it. Those in this community right here, you guys know, Investing Bros, we've been talking about over a 50% dominance on Bitcoin coming now for months. But I am sitting here watching the Bitcoin dominance chart, and where I thought we might top out around 55, maybe make a push to 60. Do you think there's a chance that Bitcoin dominance makes a real push back up to highs that we had back in 2020, maybe in the 70 to 73% region? What are your thoughts, Caleb, about what we're seeing happen on the Bitcoin dominance front? Will that continue, or is that coming to a close here soon?
So I think generally I lean towards being more of a Bitcoin maxi than anything else. Not saying that I am a Bitcoin maxi, but I kind of lean in that direction, right?
Right.
So like, first of all, I'm not surprised to see dominance rising because I still think we're generally in somewhat of a defensive market. Even in equities, I would make that case in a lot of ways. And so, Bitcoin dominance should rise in that environment, right? I've been really impressed at Ethereum's resilience as well in this market. And so given the fact that I think we're still in somewhat of a defensive market, and then particularly within crypto, given the regulatory concerns right now, could Bitcoin dominance rise significantly higher? Yes. However, I think that selfishly, I don't want to see Bitcoin dominance rise because the sign of a bull market is that altcoins are also bidding pretty significantly. So it's kind of this double-edged sword, right? Where it's like, I lean towards being a Bitcoin maxi. So for me, a lot of, the altcoin universe are shitcoins. So I want to see them go to zero in a lot of ways. But I also recognize that, I can't always have my wish. And so I have to accept the fact that, Bitcoin dominance is typically falling during a bull run. And so in a lot of ways, I want to see that signal to get additional confirmation that Bitcoin in the overall crypto universe is having, strong tailwinds.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a chance we see it continue to rise. I don't know how much longer Bitcoin's rally has in the rest of the space. But traditionally, the other thing is we don't see Bitcoin dominance peaks during bullish trends. We actually see the peaks during bearish trends. So the reason why I'm sitting here wondering, like, I think I'm gonna, my final estimation of where I think Bitcoin dominance can get is gonna have a lot to do with where is Bitcoin dominance when we do kind of keel over and start heading back down towards 25K, maybe that level, because we know that when Bitcoin starts to fall, the alts will bleed as well, and that dominance will continue to climb. That's what I want to see. Do we get up to a 55, 60% dominance while everything is going up? In which case, then I'm like, hey, I think 73 is a very real possibility to match that high back in 2020. While we bleed here a little bit. But let's kind of same thing. Let's kind of keep transitioning this into crypto. I loved what you said there. You know, you're not a Bitcoin maximalist, but you are, you know, you kind of lean that direction. Shout out to Piper and Piper, if you want to tune in, to join in on this conversation, because I'm about to say something you said this morning that I thought was very, very good. Bitcoin is where you want to kind of put all of your gains. Like the most money you can make really is in the altcoin space. But the whole point is like make those gains in your trades in the altcoins that are very volatile and there's a lot of movement, and then take that profit and put it into Bitcoin for long-term value. Piper, do you want to elaborate on that at all? And then I want to hear what Caleb has to think about that.
Yeah, so like a lot of the viewers, they know in the community on Discord too. They know I trade. I'm a trader, and most of my stuff had been in, well, all of it had been in alts and Ethereum, heavy Ethereum, and then diversified. But the whole point of me trading and the whole point of me making money is because I'm putting it in fast movers. To take those profits, though, those profits are going into Bitcoin at the end of the day. So, because I do believe Bitcoin has the strongest long-term future in crypto, but I want to make the most money fast to put into Bitcoin. So my goal had been that. And I will tell you though, you may not know this, Caleb, because you know I'm a small nobody out here in this world of the space, like you, unlike you. So about 2 weeks ago, I sold all of my alts off except for my Ethereum and put it into Bitcoin, and it was so far a great move. So I'm starting to change my opinion a little bit right now. I think when I think Bitcoin has the potential with everything going on with the ETFs and with Hong Kong opening up sales to retail for Ethereum and Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin has the opportunity to be the face melter that we've seen on a lot of alts in previous cycles. This looking at this cycle, so
Yeah. Yeah, Caleb, any feedback you have there? Any of your thoughts on that? How do you handle, because you said you're not a full blown Bitcoin maximalist, but you really do prioritize that. How do you handle your altcoin investments in relationship with your Bitcoin investment, like Piper?
So, similar to Piper, I've taken trades as, short-term positions in the altcoin universe, and that's something I will, continue to do over the years. As a long-term investor, I'm very quick to let things go. So I would certainly not classify myself as a long-term investor in the altcoin universe. And just to kind of add on to what, Piper just mentioned there, I think it's true. Like, people get onboarded into crypto because of Bitcoin, and then they typically move further out onto the risk curve as they learn about Ethereum and other layer ones and blockchain technology, right? Like rewind to the 2017 cycle, and you were hearing all these like TradFi people talk about, oh, well, we don't believe in Bitcoin, but blockchain is really cool and exciting, right? So everyone was just getting, exposed to blockchain. And I think that as people get kind of bit in the ass during a bear market, they become Bitcoin maximalists, right? Because Bitcoin is here to stay. It's the only thing that checks off a bunch of boxes as a monetary instrument, and not necessarily as a piece of technology, not as a security, not as all of these other things, right? So it's a monetary / financial asset, whereas a lot of the crypto universe, a lot of the altcoins are basically just fintech products. Bitcoin is a fintech product, but it's also much, much more than that.
That makes a lot of sense. Well,
it does actually. Because the other night on ATB, we actually talked about that, and I was asked by Drew Deasy. He said, "So where do you see Bitcoin at in 10 years?" And I said, "I think 10 years from now, crypto is crypto, and Bitcoin is an asset class." The way that it's moving right now, I think that it's going to be a standalone. Like, what are you invested in? I'm in commodities, and I'm in, I'm in these stocks, these ETFs, and then I'm in Bitcoin. And then people are going to go, "Oh, you're in crypto," and they're going to go, "No, I'm in Bitcoin." Like, so
Yep.
Well, so my next question I have for you, Caleb, as we kind of transition this, and there's even a
Mhm.
comment in chat that I think it might even be the best way to phrase this. Because I was going to ask you, hey, what are your thoughts about getting into altcoins? Is it time to do it? Is there a time you're kind of putting, in your calendar of like saying, hey, I want to get into this? But Dylan Martinez says, if Bitcoin dominance gets to new highs, would you take some of your Bitcoin profits and roll them into undervalued altcoins? And that kind of gets us into the category of when, what, how. What are your thoughts about altcoin investment? Are you starting to dabble in that right now, or you're still saying, hey, this is not the time to get into alts? And if that's the case, when is the right time?
So if Bitcoin dominance is surging, like let's say it gets up to 75%, super high, the question is, would I consider rotating into undervalued altcoins? And my question to that is like, we talk about on this channel a lot how it's like you never want to catch a falling knife. And so if you
Right.
take like Avalanche or Cosmos or Cardano or Solana and denominate it in Bitcoin terms, if that looks like it's a falling knife because it's in a downtrend on a relative basis, why would I try to step in and catch a falling knife? So my answer to that would be is if Bitcoin dominance is in an uptrend, I will not be rotating out of Bitcoin and into altcoins. If we see sustained evidence of a decline in Bitcoin dominance and on a relative basis, certain altcoins beginning to outperform Bitcoin, outperform Ethereum, outperform other altcoins, then in that environment, I could be convinced to start taking short-term swing positions.
Mm,
But so admittedly, the last time I've really looked at any altcoin was probably a week and a half ago when the Coinbase news came out and the SEC stuff was coming out, and Binance, the whole 9 yards. And what I did that day is, a lot of altcoins were making new lows on an absolute basis prior, below their, October, November, December lows from last year. And then, like I said, if you denominate those altcoins in Bitcoin, if you denominate them in Ethereum, they were also making relative lows. And so for
mhm.
me, like I'm just not interested right now whatsoever. There's actually a chart. Maybe I could pull it up if you want to
Yeah.
share my screen here as I get this going. One thing that I've been doing is I've been looking at total three, and then I take out USDT and USDC. So this
We were
essentially
just
gives us.
discussing. Well, I wasn't part of it. They were discussing this on the show yesterday because I was sick about how you get rid of stable coins. So here, I knew if we get Caleb
Yep.
Franzen on the show, we're going to find out so much more.
So you could see we were in this massive uptrend, right? So in November of 2020, total three minus stable coins was at 77 billion. It got as high as nine. It basically got as high as 1 trillion, right? So that's
Mm,
substantially more than a 10x. So as I look at the environment right now, we've had this massive pullback since the November 2021 highs. And where are we right now? First of all, we're kind of in this like descending wedge pattern. First of all, this structure is not bullish. Coming back into the zone, I was considering taking some alt swings because I was like, if it's going to rally anywhere, this is a pretty
okay,
damn logical
real quick.
place for it to
Yeah, there you
happen.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, your face was covering the screen, but Piper fixed it, so we're good.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So, I was like, if altcoins are going to rally anywhere, this green box is a pretty logical place for that rally to occur.
Okay.
Sure enough, we've seen some evidence of that now. You might even be able to see I have like an alert here. We haven't exactly crossed it yet, but like what exactly am I looking at here? Sometimes I call these like a volleyball underwater setup, where what I want to see is after we create new lows on a recent time frame, going back to the March of 2023 lows, if we can get back above that, sometimes I call it, like I said, it's like a volleyball or just like any kind of ball underwater where it's just going to kind of
Yeah.
have this explosive move higher. I'm a little concerned with this setup right now, given the fact that we also have pretty clear price structure slightly above this zone, right? So you could see support here, resistance here, support here, basically support here and support here. So just because we break above this wick here doesn't necessarily mean that we're out of the woods yet. So it kind of depends on the nature of your risk tolerance and how aggressive a trader is willing to be. If you get above this zone here, which is basically 213 billion, you can maybe start nibbling on things. If you get back above this level, you can maybe get even more aggressive. So I
Hmm.
don't know. There's something here right now. It's just not within my risk tolerance framework to take on those positions in this environment, particularly
Yeah.
when I'm only invested in Bitcoin and Ethereum right now, and those positions are doing quite well for me.
Yeah, I mean, those are solid ones to have right now. And we're looking at it like we talk about the Bitcoin dominance all the time, and not that Ethereum's dominance is doing anything crazy, but it's holding up pretty respectably right there around 20%. Down this morning, but right now, anyone who tells me my portfolio is just Bitcoin and Ethereum right now, you got to say that's a pretty wise move. Piper, I believe you're one of those people, aren't you?
Yes, I absolutely am. But I want to make a point to people that are watching, um, because the question was about getting into alts, with the versus Bitcoin dominance. And Bitcoin dominance has nothing to do with price, guys. Nothing. If Bitcoin is going up in value and everything else is going up in value, dominance won't change at all. Dominance is price versus price. So if you've got something where you start to see the dominance pull back on Bitcoin and you have things that are way undervalued, you have to question, did they go up in price, not versus Bitcoin, but did they go up in price? Because if you see something that's way undervalued in comparison to in comparison to its previous price, not Bitcoin, then you have to question, why did the price not move as Bitcoin was going up? Because it will still go up, it just will not be at the rate that Bitcoin moves. So you got to be very careful when you're looking at those undervalued altcoins, to move back into. You want to see something that still had movement, just not at the rate of Bitcoin. So
Yeah. Well, hey, I want to go ahead and transition us here because it is 9:31 now, and so that means markets are open, and we're going to just quickly look at this. I'm not even going to share my screen. At the moment, there's some stocks opening up green. Oh my gosh, GBTC is up 11% already. But things like S&P 500, Dow Jones, NASDAQ, they are opening up in the red this morning, Caleb. And my question for you is not even just short term, but I want you to kind of elaborate both short term and long term. What is your thought about the current state of the stock market and what the rest of the year holds? We've had guests like Bill Noble on here before who predicted a massive crash coming later this fall. Of course, more recently, we just had the debt ceiling. It was raised once again. So is there a potential you see that the stock market could continue to make this climb that we're seeing? Or what are your thoughts about the stock market this fall? Do you think a crash is coming? Do you think that we're going to continue to rise? What are your thoughts there?
So a crash only comes if there's some sort of economic calamity or widespread financial crisis. I really changed my tune on being bullish stocks in mid-March after the failures / shutdowns of regional banks and so on and so forth. And I did a tweet on March 13th before the market opened, and I said, so long as this is contained as a banking crisis, expect to see the NASDAQ outperform the S&P and expect the S&P to outperform the Dow. And that's exactly what we've seen.
Yeah, you hit that spot on. Yeah, that is dead on.
It's not like I had some crazy foresight into this. All I knew is that the Dow Jones had the most financials exposure than the S&P, and the S&P had more financials exposure than the NASDAQ. So it's like, if this is a banking specific concern and crisis, banks aren't going to do well. So own the thing that has the least amount of exposure to the banks, and that's the NASDAQ. Now, over the course of the past several weeks, we've started to see some of that tone shift in terms of seeing a pretty decent amount of relative performance coming out of the financial sector. Nonetheless, I think that there's been this bearish narrative that it's only 7 stocks going up and leading the market higher. First of all, it's a terrible bear case, an argument to be made, and second of all, it's not even factually true anymore, and it hasn't been factually true for over a month. And so, like, for example, last Friday, I think it was more than 50%, or almost 50%. It was 45% of stocks in the S&P 500 hit new 20-day highs. We had 20% of stocks in the index hit new 50-day highs, and we had 11% of stocks in the S&P 500 hit new 1-year highs, new 52-week highs. That is not representative of only 7 stocks going up. And given the fact that we were seeing diversity, if you will, in terms of market capitalization sizes, sectors, we were seeing widespread participation to the upside. And guys, that's what we've been seeing every week for the past 3 weeks. So it's not like that's been something new. We had one-off week where it wasn't very good, but it's been generally very strong now for months and months under the hood for the S&P 500. I call it the under the hood metrics for the S&P. And so the NASDAQ has been ultra strong. And one of the things that I've been particularly focused on is looking at MGK. It's the Vanguard Mega Cap Growth ETF. And so, like, in my mind, if we were going to have weakness in the market, given the fact that the strongest sliver of the market has been mega cap growth will likely be the barometer for future weakness if and when it comes. So far, we have not seen that weakness. So it's party on as far as I'm concerned. Let me say it this way: could my tune change if and when we see evidence of failed breakouts or structural breakdowns? Yes, I've outlined those levels on Twitter, on my newsletter, everywhere. So you can find my research on that. And until then, as the saying goes, when the music's playing, you got to dance. So I've been dancing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Makes a lot of sense. If you could actually go over to my screen really quickly, Piper. Yep. I've got that because I've been tracking that Vanguard Mega Growth ETF as well. And I'll point out on the monthly candles, guys, May was actually got a buy rating from the Market Oracle here from Chart Prime. So it is, and the trend assist is actually turned green. So this is just in confluence with what Caleb just said.
Really quick, actually, I came across a study that I created on my own, and I published it on Sunday. Would I be able to share that with you guys just really quick?
Yeah.
If Piper, if you wouldn't mind just going to share my screen. I talked about it in my newsletter this last weekend. I'll just kind of like briefly give a synopsis here. So what we're looking at is the NASDAQ 100 going back to when it was first created in 1985 or perhaps 1984. And I have the 18-month Williams %R oscillator here on the lower bound. And so why 18 months? It's a year and a half of price analysis. And one of the things that I noticed is in the NASDAQ's 40 plus year history, we've only ever seen the indicator go from oversold, aka the lower bound, to the upper bound in these kind of like full oscillations 4 times. And the last time it happened was back in December of 2009. And as you can see, we're about to achieve that crossover potentially this month, maybe next, maybe the month after, but we're getting very, very close, right? So it's probably a pretty good idea to understand how did the NASDAQ perform after this signal occurred. Just by looking at the chart, we could see it was quite strong. And I actually, created this table of returns. On a 1-year basis, the average return is 18.1%. On a 5-year basis, the average return is 90%. So you're basically doubling your investment over a 5-year period. That's really good. The problem that I have with this data is it's only 4 market signals, right? So our sample is very small. So I said, okay, let me apply the same thing to the S&P 500 because I can get data going back to pre-World War II, right? So 1949, and there were 14 indicators. Again, the last time the indicator occurred was back in March of 2010. So coming out of the financial crisis, coming out of the Great Recession. And so we could see here, it's a little bit choppier, but we have much more data here to give us a little bit more confidence about what the implications are for the market going forward. You also might notice we're not nearly as close as we were for the NASDAQ to complete the bullish signal. So there's still a little bit more work here for the S&P 500. So it's very important to note the signal has not yet flashed. I'm just letting people know in advance, right? Sometimes I like to be like Babe Ruth and I like to point to the home run before I actually hit it. And so when I look at the S&P 500's returns going forward, they're very, very strong, right? On a 1-year basis, the market is higher. I think it's 100%. It's 100% of the time. 2 years, 100% of the time higher. 3 years, 5 years, 10 years later, market is pretty much always higher. And the 1-year return of 14.2% on average is significantly higher than the average calendar year return of 9%. So, from this perspective, the indicator looks really good, super promising. It goes all the way back to 1949. We have 14 cases, including returns that were super choppy in the 1970s because of the inflationary cycle, right? So you could even see, like, there's a case here for people to look at the signal and say, well, Caleb, what if we go back to, another wave of inflation? Okay, well, let's look at the data from the 1960s to the 1980s. Right. So we can look at what that data looked like to get a sense for how does the market perform in an inflationary environment after the signal occurs. And the data is here. Either way, the data is very optimistic going forward. And I think people should be really aware of this, and statistics certainly don't operate in a vacuum. But given the larger sample size here, look, I certainly wasn't I was born in 1995, right? So only 2 signals have occurred since I was born. But I guarantee you there were significant geopolitical risks, economic risks, financial market risks, U.S. presidential cycles, wars, trade conflicts. Everything was happening over these time periods. Nonetheless, the market has a higher average 1-year return than it typically does once the signal occurs. So again, statistics don't operate in a vacuum. You can stop sharing my screen now if you'd like. Statistics don't operate in a vacuum, but they help us to nullify all of the crazy things that are happening in the market at any given time to just focus on the price signal alone, right? Because price at the end of the day is an embodiment of all of the fundamental slash macro risks that are in the market at any given moment. That's always reflected in price. So price is always going to be our arbiter of truth.
Yeah, that's really really good there, man. Like I every time you come on here, you bring these nuggets of things I've never seen that I'm like, dude, Caleb makes me excited. He makes me love what I'm doing here. I can already tell crypto trades is going to take what I just said out of context. So I'm just going in and going to get out of the way now. I'm going to acknowledge what I just said. Crypto trades is going to do something with that, and I apologize at this point. Before we keep moving on, because I think T Shroom had some questions he wanted to ask you. Make sure everybody go ahead and smash that like button. If you guys are loving Caleb Franzen being on here, there's a couple things. First of all, I want to get him on here more often. We've been a little lackluster with getting our guests on, but we're going to get better with that. But make sure you also, in the description, I believe his Twitter is there. And do we have a link to his newsletter too? Because that newsletter, yeah, the newsletter's there as well. Make sure you guys go subscribe to Cubic Analytics. I've subscribed to it. It is awesome. It's one of my rituals. I read that every single week. Helps keep me up to date on what's happening. So make sure you guys are supporting Caleb. We love him very, very much so here with the Investing Bros. But T Shroom, what is you? I know you had some questions for Caleb here as well before we get into some of our stories. What were your questions you had?
Well, the question that I had actually plays in with the first story here. I had some stuff on the charts, but I think it'd probably be good to go ahead and get into the stories. And so that we have this first headline, which is $572 billion added to the U.S. debt in 2 weeks. Total debt now exceeds China, Japan, Germany, and UK combined GDP. And then if you go over to the federalreserve.gov website, you can see that this uptick has actually not even been reflected yet. That here was some funding for the war in Ukraine, and this latest 570 something billion has not even been reflected in an uptick yet. So, my question to you,
T-Shroom, I hate to correct you, man. What you're looking at here is the Federal Reserve's balance sheet. The news headline that you were going over was for the federal government. So it won't be reflected on the Fed's balance sheet. And that uptick that we saw on the Fed's balance sheet was from the BTFP facility and the discount window lending from the bank failures, not from the war in Ukraine stuff.
That's right. So those working in tandem, the question that I have is, how much longer can this go on? I know that we just had this debt ceiling raised, but how much longer can this go on before, and this is a pretty big kind of existential United States question, and you don't need to linger on this, but how much longer can it go on before, it starts to become a really serious issue? Basically, how much longer until the U.S. World Reserve currency status becomes in question?
So I used to be obsessed with this kind of topic and this conversation because of how closely I used to follow like Peter Schiff and that kind of commentary. But over the years, it's become something that I just don't pay attention to because I think it's super important to recognize kind of the tail end of your question, which was, that the US is the world's reserve currency. And those kinds of changes don't happen over the night. They don't happen over the course of a year. They probably don't even happen over the course of 5 years. They happen over the course of decades, if not generations. And it's one of those things where it can, what's the saying? It goes like suddenly, then all at once or something like that. Or slowly, then all at once, slowly, then suddenly. I'm butchering it, so I'm sorry. But so who knows? Things could change at some point down the line. One of the funny jokes that I've been making is because one of my good friends has asked me a question about this pretty similarly, maybe like 3 months ago. And I've been living abroad now since the beginning of March, and I kind of quipped back at him a little bit of a joke, and I was like, so long as English is not the language of the world, then the US dollar is going to be fine, right? Because like I could pretty much go anywhere and find someone to speak English to, right? Which is generally a reflection of how strong our economy is and how strong our business is, that people need to speak English in order to do business with America. and American companies, right? So in a lot of ways, it's interesting because like both language and money are kind of like this social cultural phenomenon in a lot of ways. And so you could kind of make some bridging statement here. I know I'm in a way kind of grasping at straws, but it's been like interesting food for thought as I've been here abroad, and I'm kind of like having that realization, like, oh yeah, like everyone speaks English. Why is that? Oh, right. That's because we're the strongest economy in the entire world and everyone wants to do business with us. So it's an asset to know English. Right now, it's like you walk around the US and try speaking Chinese to somebody. If I'm here in Istanbul, if I try to speak to Chinese to somebody, everyone will be looking at me like I'm absolutely crazy, right? And that's generally a reflection that China's economy is not someone that people want to do business with.
Yeah. Well, you said yourself that you felt like you're grasping at straws, but for our audience, I just want you guys to realize that what Caleb is getting at here is absolutely bedrock information when it comes to understanding crypto, when it comes to understanding currency. And you hit the nail right on the head, Caleb. While I was at my 2-week training not long ago, I was actually explaining why I'm so passionate about Bitcoin to one of my fellow folks out there who's training with me, and I was explaining to them all money is language. The Supreme Court has held up campaign finance laws because at the end of the day, money is just language, and all the United States dollar is the most efficient language to communicate value, right? To communicate the value of goods and services today in this minute, right? And so when you obviously have a step forward in the technology of language, something like Bitcoin, it starts to shift, and we've seen that shift. That's why we have this whole YouTube channel. That's why we're so excited about it in the first place. But as it stands, Bitcoin is just a drop in the bucket that's reflected in market cap versus USD. But as it stands, the United States dollar is still far and away exactly what you're saying. It's still far and away the most powerful, the most reliable, the most secure currency out there. And that's why I agree with you. I don't think that no matter how much debt we get into, right? Obviously, there is an upper limit, but no matter how much debt we get into, I think that it's a philosophy at the end of the day, and it's the philosophy of communication. And that's not going away. It's that philosophy that is ultimately the bedrock of the value of the United States dollar. And as long as people communicate in that language, then that dollar sustains value, and then that dollar can be exchanged for the goods and services that Boeing produces, right? And at the end of the day, as long as you have the biggest bullets, you've got the biggest army, the most skilled and trained army, which I learned a lot about in the last 2 weeks. You can keep on rocking with your reserve currency status. So, Caleb, I couldn't agree more. Tim, I think we'll probably just go ahead and slip right on into the stories from here.
Yeah.
And kind of short on time. Yeah. So going back over to my screen, and we'll go ahead and get into this story here. Bitcoin ETF race intensifies as Wisdom Tree and Invesco both file submissions within 24 hours of joining BlackRock. So they're piling on, guys. BlackRock has taken the lead here. Big institutional bank coming out and saying, hey, let's go ahead and file the ETF. That was last week's news. Big for Bitcoin. And now Wisdom Tree and Invesco are doing the same. Andrew Tate, you've probably seen him trending around. Andrew Tate's 500,000 in Bitcoin seized by Romanian prosecutors. So this raises questions about crypto. It raises questions more about Andrew Tate. But ultimately,
out of curiosity, T-Shirm, does the article say anything about is the 500K that they confiscated, was that in a cold wallet, in a hot wallet, in a centralized exchange? Does it say anything about what it was confiscated from?
Mm-hmm. It's a good question.
Because if it's a cold wallet, they can take his cold wallet, but they can't do anything with it. And Andrew Tate's the type of guy. I don't see Andrew Tate giving up his seed phrase if he has one at all.
Yeah. It doesn't get into detail about it, but that 500, it looks like it also includes luxury cars, watches, properties. So approximately 21 Bitcoin. So they did get Bitcoin, and you have to wonder, if maybe they had some leverage on him. Like, if you don't give us the Bitcoin, we're going to take another 8 properties.
No, again, it's Andrew Tate. He's not going to do that. If they confiscated it from him, they actually have Bitcoin, is because they got it off a centralized exchange, which we have seen governments work with exchanges to confiscate money. But if it was a cold wallet, Andrew Tate's the type of person, I bet you they could torture him, and he's not giving up that seed phrase.
Sounds like you got a lot of faith in Andrew Tate there. So we'll see.
I have faith in his ability not to give away his money. That's what I have faith in.
Yeah.
I'm not saying anything else about what I think about him, because I have mixed feelings, but I don't think.
Hey guys, Crypto Trade says that he saw in a video that Andrew Tate uses Exodus, so they
Exodus.
probably
Well,
forced
well,
the
but
exchange to
I
handle
thought I
that.
saw something that said that he had multiple. So that's what I'm saying. Like it's highly possible that he has millions in like a cold wallet somewhere, and then he has a little bit like on exchanges or something. I'm wondering if
Mhm.
this is like just a fraction of the Bitcoin he actually owns that they were able to actually get their hands on due to the fact that it wasn't in a cold wallet.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean the $500,000 question is how did they get his Bitcoin? So we don't have that answer right now, but the headline here is that they seized it and he's going down. All right, and I believe it's on trafficking violations there in Romania. All right, moving along though, we've got one more story here. Pentagon accounting error overestimates value of weapons sent to Ukraine by 6.2 billion. Cue all the IRS memes and how they're aggressively trying to get the extra $1,000 from you, but there's a 6.2 billion rounding error that they can't account for there. And then last but not least, guys, we have a pretty interesting Tim Foyle hat story. So Tim, I'll let you go ahead
Ew.
and pitch this one here if you've got it pulled up. If not, I can spin it here.
I don't have it on my screen to share, so go ahead
No
and
worries,
keep it
I
on
gotcha.
share it on his screen.
Yep.
But
So
ultimately, guys, I can break it down if we just keep it on your screen.
go for it.
Eleanor Tourette. I think her last name's Tourette. I don't know. Every time I've talked with her, I've just called her Eleanor or Ellie. She works for Fox. She's a big proponent for the crypto space. Spends her time just literally doing nothing but researching what's going on with the SEC. Like her full time job is diving into what's happening with the SEC and their involvement with crypto. So she put out a tweet this morning, and you can read what the photo she took, but what she said herself is what you need to know. Ethereum co-founder Vitalik Buterin is listed as a co-founder of WX blockchain. So I actually didn't know what WX blockchain was, but then she elaborates, a part owner of Prometheum, which was recently given rights to operate crypto. So you guys know about Prometheum. Most of you know about Prometheum, this very sketchy exchange that came out of nowhere and isn't even officially open for business, but is being used as the staple of what the SEC wants crypto exchanges to look like. A lot of fishy stuff going on in there. The details are still coming out, and this is just one more of them. Vitalik Buterin is a co-founder of a company that is a part owner. Things are looking a little sketchy here. Now, there's some diversion on the team. Let's go to Brocam here, and I even want to get Caleb's take. Maybe Caleb doesn't have a take. There's probably even diversity of thought here within crypto bros about what this means for Vitalik Buterin, what this means for Ethereum. I don't think Ethereum's in trouble whatsoever. However, I posed the question here, and I think this is going to be a conversation that continues on. Just when it comes to Vitalik Buterin, there's a lot of negativity that has come here. And to be fair, a lot of it is hearsay. I don't think that there's ever been exact damning evidence that Vitalik Buterin is specifically doing anything sketchy. But here's the problem. When a person finds themselves in sketchy situations over and over and over again, you got to at least start asking the question about who they are. We've seen Vitalik Buterin, with his involvement in the Hinman files. Again, is there anything that's clear about what happened there? No, there's not a lot of clarity. What we do know, though, is that he had a special relationship with the SEC that has kept kept Ethereum from being listed as a security. Now we're seeing the new FTX, Prometheum, being brought into the spotlight, and it turns out that Vitalik is a partial owner of that company. This is more dirt on him. My point here, and I want to get other people's take on it, and I want to hear in chat from you guys as well. I am not saying anything bad about Ethereum. This is one of the good things about cryptocurrencies is that crypto can detach itself from their owners. I am specifically talking about Vitalik Buterin. I'm starting to question if he is the friend of decentralization that a lot of people thought he was and that we're hoping he could be. Good news is I don't know how much more control he has over Ethereum. Ethereum is a pretty, I mean, it's not as decentralized as I think some people want it to be, but it's pretty heavily decentralized. Vitalik Buterin himself has done some sketchy things recently. I'm not even involved. He also has done some stuff. I don't know where people's thoughts are, but he's done some stuff in support of what's that what's that organization called? The One World organization. I just blanked on what its name was.
The United Nations or the World Economic Forum?
World Economic Forum. He's had some relationship there. He's had some interesting funding he's done with supporting certain causes that, again, we'll go ahead and leave out here. My point here is Vitalik Buterin. What are our thoughts about him? T-Shroom, I want to start with you. Are you still in support of Vitalik Buterin? Do you still think that this is a stand-up person that we should be looking to as a staple of the crypto space? Or are you starting to draw your question marks?
We talked about this before the show. I'm going to make it quick. I feel like Vitalik is kind of emerging as the Mark Zuckerberg of crypto, where it's like he has all these connections that are very legitimate, and so they lead to a lot of legitimacy and propping up of his projects. But at the end of the day, the projects bring real value, right? Facebook has brought trillions of dollars, man, yeah, maybe trillions of dollars to the global economy
Yeah,
as folks are able to get in there and bring value. Same thing for Ethereum. Now there's also a ton of speculation around Mark Zuckerberg. How genuine of a person? How does he really want to connect people, or is he just trying to line his pockets? But at the end of the day, the final analysis is that Mark Zuckerberg he's a tech bro, and yeah, he's mega rich. He has 51% of Facebook still. But people at the end of the day, they kind of trust him. They're willing to do business with him. They're willing to buy ads on Facebook. I think Vitalik is gonna kind of shake out to be the same thing. Is like he's become, or he started off as an establishment guy. He's tied in with a lot of really big names that maybe aren't super interested in true decentralization. But at the end of the day, he started Ethereum truly, and while he started it with Charles Hoskinson and a couple others that spun out into their own crypto blockchain layer ones, he was the one who at the end of the day kind of was tethered to the name, no pun intended, of Ethereum. So that's kind of my take. With this latest development, I haven't seen enough evidence to say that he's operating in the shadows in some nefarious way. I think he just is, he's someone who you want to have on your team, and this Promethean organization had just brought him on. And I don't see anything too nefarious here, but that does not mean that I'm not open-minded and willing to hear more information that may state to the contrary.
I want to get Piper's take as well, but I want to make sure. Caleb, do you have any thoughts on this whatsoever? Or are you just kind of still processing it? What are your thoughts about Vitalik Buterin at this point in time with recent information?
Yeah, this is pretty out of my wheelhouse, guys, admittedly. So, Vitalik's super smart, but whatever he's doing behind the scenes or not, like I have no opinion. So I think that humans in general are selfish. We always like to think that there's a level of altruism, and sometimes there is. But I think over the long term, humans are going to, and individuals are going to show themselves to be selfish more so than altruistic. And so Vitalik's super smart. I would say on net, he's been a massive benefit for the crypto ecosystem. Could that change going forward? Yes. Could the statement that I just made be proven false 5 years from now? Yes. I have no idea. So it's interesting for sure. We never like to hear about like collusion or paying people off, whatever the case is. So who knows if this is true or not? But yeah, those are just kind of my overall thoughts right there.
Yeah, Piper, what about you? What are your thoughts?
I have no thoughts on. No, I'm joking. So, look, Saint Buterin. I mean, oh my bad. I mean, Vitalik Buterin. He's a visionary. He's a visionary, and he knew going in long before with the foresight of the genius that he is, that eventually the tide was going to come in on him. And you don't fight the tide. When you're in a rip tide, you swim with it, not against it. You will drown if you swim against it. I think he knew that he had to get well networked, well connected, and have all of his chips in place before people realize, okay, this thing's going to grow really quick and we need to put a hammer down on it, so that he can know that he had everything set to survive. You don't prep for the storm during the storm. You prep before, and I think that's what he did. I think it's a visionary move for him. He had foresight. It shows how smart he is in the space, and the connections that he's built is why he's going to make it through, and Ethereum is going to make it through all of the SEC stuff. So
yeah. Well, and here's, I want to start off by saying, because even though I think that I share a different thought than T-Shroom and Piper, I'll start by saying what you guys said is dead on. Especially what you said there, Piper. He had the foresight to grow these relationships, yada, yada, yada. Great. But you do a deal with the devil and you're going to get your hands dirty. If it is true, I want to find out more about what's happening here. I mean, we want to find out more about what his relationship was with the SEC back in 2018 off of those Hinman files. We need to find out more about what his involvement. I mean, is this one of the things he co-founded this company and then he had no say whatsoever in their purchasing a part of Prometheum? There's a chance that all that holds up. There's a chance that his hands are clean. What I'm saying is, though, is we're starting to catch a lot of anti-crypto, anti-decentralized stories with Vitalik finding his name in those stories. That's not a good sign. Here's what I'll close with, because it is 10 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and close out the show. I've said this before, and this is a reiteration. No one should be considered the hero of crypto. We've made that mistake in the past. At one point, Elon Musk was kind of the hero of crypto. At other points, there's been other figures who have come out. Sam Bankman-Fried at one point was seen as a staple, one of the greatest people in the crypto space. We need to stop making people crypto heroes. But it is good to have figures that we can depend upon, that we know will speak for us in favor of freedom and decentralization. And my concerns at this point is if Vitalik is still one of those individuals that we can trust to fight for us. That being said, we still have a lot more digging to do on this. We just wanted to bring this to your guys' attention. Thank you so much, everybody who came in and joined us today. Thank you so much to Caleb for taking some time out of his Turkey trip to be here on the channel. Make sure you guys go follow him. Links down below. Guys, we'll be back tomorrow morning, same time, same place. We are the Investing Bros, the most generous crypto community on YouTube. That being said, we'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.
Trying to make paper, turn that better to cake. Money like Lego, connect the dots that bank. We are investing bros. We are investing bros. Army pipe, lethal on trade. Entries and exits, worthy of praise. Tim, the professor, the TA. Shout it out loud on the PA. T-Shrooms news, got the word. Doing better than what he deserves. Beamer, leave no evidence. Soon fly coop with his dividend. Trying to make paper, turn that better to cake. Money like Lego, connect the dots that bank. We are investing bros. We are investing bros.
Investing bros. Investing bros. Investing bros. Investing bros. Investing bros.